We once learned about a function and how to call a function like the print and the input and the length function and so on. In this section, we will learn some more about the function, like how to define them. So remember, the function is something that we typically write once and then others can use in our team in a very easy way. So it saves the time of everyone. The Python provides us already with several built-in functionalities, and we today will mainly learn how to write our own ones. So this is a bunch of the functions that we learned already. We learned about the print function here without any input parameters here or arguments. This function takes nothing and print new line. This function takes 3 arguments, 1, 2, 3 of different types, and it returns nothing. The min function can take several arguments like 2 here and return the minimum among them. The type function returns the type of one single argument that you pass. It should be something to get the type of it. The length can take a string and return the length of it. The int can take some string or maybe float and cast it to integer. We see the input function returning a single line that it reads. It can take nothing or take a single parameter. So this is what we learned so far. As you see, it seems that we have a function name. Sometimes we can send 0 or more arguments, and we are receiving the output sometimes of the function. This is what we learned so far. Now let's move to defining our own function, and the purpose of that is I would like to do something that is going to save my time and my team time to write it once only. So you start with the def keyword this way, def space, and then you write the function name, and then you start to open parentheses and close it, and then you started to put the future arguments that people will put here. We call them parameters, we'll know after a little. And you have to put a colon here, similar to the if condition. And once we put a colon, then this block have to be indented this way. So like very exactly to the for loops and if conditions. And then you are starting to put your logic. In our case, my print function takes 2 integers or takes two inputs and then sum them or multiply them. That's all. Please take a minute to read this and try to familiarize your eyes with such an input. Let's try to use this function. Here is a bigger code that has this function here in the middle. The line here, let's execute this code. Let's go with the code flow. In line 2, the line say print hello. Then as you see, the word hello will be printed. Nothing. In line 6, it see define our function blah blah blah. Now I would like you to understand what's happening here. There is nothing will be executed here. All what happened is your interpreter will record that there is now a defined function named our print, and guys can now call it. That's all. So no execution from line 6 to 9. There is just an information to the interpreter about what is possible. In line 11, we started to call our print and pass 2 arguments, 1 and 2. When we do that, the function will be called like any other function we learned previously. Takes 2 numbers, which is 1 and 2, sum them, multiply them, which will print here sum 3 multiply 2. Then we printed another statement by ourselves, and then we called the function again with 2 new arguments, 3 and 4, which is going to sum them and multiply them. So again, as you see, if there is some steps before the function or some lines to be executed, they can be executed. After it, they can be executed. When the interpreter see line number 6, it just define it. There is nothing will be executed at the moment. Also observe, according to the web guidelines, you have to leave couple of lines before or after the functions here. If you didn't do that, you will notice that the PyCharm IDE is give you some warning to give more spaces. This is mainly good for visibility, like for readability. Now there is an important distinction that we need to make between what we call a parameter and what we call an argument. We used to see the word argument a lot. When we have a function here and we pass something, we call what we pass an argument. but the variables that are receiving the arguments, we call them the parameter. So parameters are the variables defined here in this def line, and the arguments is what is passed from here. So you notice the first, for example, this first here, which is variable, we call it an argument because we are passing it, and here this is what is receiving. So this first is a parameter. So this is mainly the difference between parameter and argument. Sometimes in industry, guys will use the same word, like they call both of them argument or call both of them parameter. This happens a lot, but it's good to know about the distinction between them. Let's learn about some errors that we might cause when we use the function in a wrong way. The first one is the type error. When we get a type error, it means we passed, there are several reasons. It means, for example, that we passed incorrect number of arguments. For example, this function is just receiving 2 arguments, so you shouldn't try to pass less than that or more than that. So let's make a trial. If we try to call our print with no parameters, it will say type error, missing 2 required positional arguments. Forget about the word positional, we'll come back to it later. So there are missing 2 arguments here. If you passed only like our print with 1 argument only, it say missing 1 argument. Now let's pass more than 1 argument. Let's pass 3. 1, 2, 3. It will tell you that the function takes 2 arguments, but 3 were given. So you provided here 3 arguments, but 2 only were given. Also, the type error can come if you try to pass a value that is an appropriate one. Notice here the method have a subtract function. So the addition is good for integers, for floats, for strings, the multiplication also, but the subtraction doesn't work for strings. If someone tried to say our print of 2 strings 1 and 2, they will take a type error and say unsupported operand type for minus, which is str and star. So say that the minus here received 2 operands, which is these 2 guys, and the operands are str, and this str isn't good for the minus operator. It takes time to be familiar with the errors. When you see an error, read the message, try to understand it, try to guess its meaning. Another error that you should be familiar with it now is the indentation error. This function has a colon here, so you have to indent this block. It cannot start from the early beginning of the line. Also, like the if and while loops, if you have an indentation, you have to be consistent with a block, so it doesn't be this way. Finally, about the function name, very similar to the variable names, they are the same rule, and even when it comes to the name itself, we follow what we call a snake casing. Snake casing means all letters are lower, and if you have to separate them, then use underscores. Something like compute underscore sum, find the smallest position, they are all small with underscores in between. That's all.